Welcome, dear listener, to this quiet moment where we allow the world to slow down. As you prepare to rest, let's step back into a world far removed from our own, a world of stone walls, candlelight, and cold winds whistling through wooden shutters. We often think modern dating is difficult, but tonight, you'll discover how the search for love in medieval times was a challenge that would make even the worst first dates today feel like a gentle inconvenience. Imagine living in a tiny village where the number of people you could possibly meet was smaller than your contacts list. Half were related to you, a few were already married, and others were either too young, too old, or simply unavailable due to feudal obligations. There were no casual chats over coffee, no text messages exchanged late at night, and no leisurely walks to get to know someone. Romance wasn't guided by attraction or connection. It was determined by your place in society, your family's needs, and the wishes of those who held power over your life. For many, love was a luxury that life's harsh realities did not allow. If you were a peasant, your days were spent working from dawn until dusk just to keep your family alive, and a bad harvest could mean hunger for months. In such a world, finding someone to help share the burdens of survival mattered more than finding someone who made your heart race. Most marriages were arranged with practical concerns in mind. Could this person help tend the fields? Did they come with livestock, tools, or a piece of land? Were they healthy enough to work and bear children, ensuring the family's survival? Love was rarely considered in these calculations, and the idea of marrying for affection would have seemed like a frivolous distraction, even a threat to stability. And even if two hearts did manage to find each other, there was no promise that they would be allowed to marry. The local lord had the power to approve or deny marriages among his workers, often using this authority to maintain control over the people who labored on his land. If you were valuable, your lord might refuse your marriage to someone from another village simply to keep you where he wanted you. But what about the noble families? You might wonder. Surely they had the freedom to marry for love, being surrounded by wealth and influence. Yet, for the nobility, love was often even less of a consideration. Marriage among the wealthy was about alliances, territories, and strengthening family power. Children, especially daughters, were viewed as important pieces in the political game, traded to secure peace treaties, land agreements, and military support. Imagine being a young noble girl promised to a man decades older whom you never met, simply because it served your family's interests. Expressing unhappiness with this arrangement wasn't just frowned upon. It could be seen as rebellion against your family, and even a sin in the eyes of the church. Age differences in these marriages were stark, and the concept of childhood was vastly different. Girls as young as 7 could be promised in marriage, with ceremonies often taking place when they were around 12 or 13. Many were married to men far older, expected to manage households, bear children, and maintain family alliances, while they themselves were still children by modern standards. The dangers for these young brides were immense. Pregnancy and childbirth were risky, and many young women did not survive. It wasn't just the lack of medical knowledge. Their bodies were often not ready for the physical demands of childbirth. Yet the pressure to produce heirs meant pregnancies followed one after another. But the challenges of medieval romance did not end there. The church held a tight grip over matters of love and marriage, viewing physical intimacy with suspicion and emphasizing that sexual relations, even within marriage, should only occur for the purpose of having children. Any enjoyment of such intimacy was seen as sinful, adding another layer of fear and guilt to relationships. Physical attraction, which we consider an essential part of romance today, was complicated by the realities of medieval hygiene. Bathing was infrequent, and dental care was almost non-existent, leading to an environment where even getting close to someone was not as pleasant as it might be today. Skin conditions were common, and the spread of diseases was poorly understood, making intimacy a dangerous gamble. These layers of societal control, economic necessity, religious dogma, and the ever-present threat of disease turned the pursuit of love into a perilous journey. Romance was overshadowed by survival, and moments of genuine affection were rare and often hidden. And yet, in the quiet corners of this harsh world, love still managed to find its way through. Stolen glances, whispered conversations, and the smallest gestures of kindness carried immense weight in a time when every day was a struggle against the elements, poverty, and the constraints of society. As you prepare to drift off tonight, think of those who lived long ago, who despite the cold, the hunger, and the unyielding demands of their world, found moments to love and be loved, even if only briefly. Let this reminder of history bring a sense of quiet gratitude for the freedoms we have now and the connections we can build in our lives. As you rest your head tonight, let us gently continue our quiet journey through the winding, shadowy halls of medieval life. We've seen how love was often tangled in duty, survival, and family demands. But if you lived in the medieval world, love and courtship were also shaped by countless rules, expectations, and silent pressures that made romance a challenge beyond imagination. First, there were strict boundaries set by the church. Marriage was considered a sacred bond, but the church also saw the human body and its desires with suspicion. Rules were set for when intimacy was allowed, often forbidding it on holy days, which made up a significant portion of the calendar. This meant that even within marriage, couples were told when they could and could not be together, adding another layer of control over their most personal moments. And then there was the concept of consanguinity, the fear of marrying too closely within your bloodline. This wasn't a gentle suggestion. It was a serious rule enforced by the church, and in small villages where everyone was related in some way, it could be almost impossible to find someone you were allowed to marry. The church kept detailed records, and marriages could be declared invalid years later if it was discovered that the couple was related within the prohibited degree, tearing families apart. Beyond these rules, there was the constant shadow of social class. A peasant could not dream of marrying into nobility, and even among peasants, marrying outside their social standing could bring shame and punishment. Marriages were often arranged by families to ensure that land remained within certain lines, and a young person's wishes were rarely considered important enough to change these plans. For those who felt drawn to someone beyond these limitations, secrecy was the only option. Secret courtships were dangerous and often harshly punished. Lovers who met in the dark corners of fields or near wells risked not only their reputations, but also harsh penalties if discovered, ranging from fines to public shaming. Women, in particular, faced the harshest consequences, as society placed the burden of purity upon them, while men often escaped the same level of blame. If a woman was discovered to be pregnant outside of marriage, it could lead to lifelong consequences. She might be cast out of her home, forced to live on the edges of society, or pressured to enter a convent. The child would be marked by the circumstances of its birth, carrying a social stigma that could impact its entire life. It is easy to imagine the fear and secrecy that shadowed even the simplest moments of affection. A touch of the hand, a glance across the market square, or a brief conversation while drawing water from the village well could be charged with risk and longing. Meanwhile, for the nobility, courtly love became a way to channel desires that could not be fulfilled within the confines of arranged marriages. Troubadours sang of love that was passionate yet unattainable, praising noble women from afar in songs and poems. These stories often depicted love as something that could never fully be realized, keeping it in the realm of longing rather than reality. This concept of courtly love created a strange contradiction. On one hand, it elevated the idea of romantic affection, giving people a sense of beauty and idealism in a world filled with harshness. On the other hand, it reinforced the idea that true love was meant to be distant, never fully achieved, and always tinged with sadness and sacrifice. Imagine being a young noblewoman, hearing songs praising love, while knowing your marriage was arranged to secure a treaty. Imagine being a young squire, dreaming of the lady of the castle, knowing that your love could never be spoken aloud. These quiet longings filled the halls of castles and the hearts of those who lived within them, a silent background to the noise of political maneuvers and family obligations. But courtship, when allowed, was far from private. In villages, parents and neighbors would closely watch interactions between young people, and any sign of interest would be discussed, questioned, and analyzed by the community. Privacy was rare, and rumors could spread quickly, turning even innocent interactions into reasons for suspicion. Gifts were exchanged as tokens of affection, but these were not grand or lavish for most people. A simple woven ribbon, a small carved token, or a handful of wildflowers could be the most a young couple could share. These small gestures carried great meaning, treasured as signs of affection in a world where love often had no space to grow. Among the wealthy, gifts could be more elaborate, but they were also carefully chosen to signal interest without crossing lines. A carefully embroidered handkerchief, a piece of jewelry, or a poem could be given in secret, hinting at feelings that could not be spoken openly. Festival and community gatherings provided rare opportunities for young people to interact under the watchful eyes of elders. Dances, feasts, and religious celebrations were some of the few moments when courtship could happen more freely, though even these moments were guided by the rules of propriety and the ever-present concerns of reputation. And in the midst of these social restrictions and fears, there was the constant reality of illness and mortality. The average life expectancy was low, and disease could sweep through communities without warning. The fear of death was never far away, and the desire to marry and have children was also tied to the need to secure the future of families before life could be cut short. Despite these hardships, people found moments of quiet connection, finding comfort in companionship and shared burdens. A marriage arranged for practical reasons could, over time, grow into a partnership built on respect and even love. In the harsh reality of medieval life, this growth of affection within the constraints of duty was a quiet miracle. As you settle into your bed tonight, let your mind wander to these ancient times, where even in a world filled with hardship and fear, people sought connection and love in small, meaningful ways. Let this quiet reflection ease your thoughts, reminding you that even in the most challenging circumstances, the human heart continues to search for warmth and companionship. Take a slow, calming breath as we continue our gentle walk through the past, letting these softly told stories help your mind drift into rest. We have seen how medieval romance was a struggle within a world of harsh rules, family expectations, and the quiet fear of survival. Now, let us look more closely at the day marriage arrived, the ceremony that bound two people together, sometimes as strangers, sometimes with quiet hope, and often under the careful watch of the church. Marriage in medieval times was not a grand celebration of love as we imagine it today. It was a legal and religious contract meant to secure alliances, confirm property rights, and ensure that children born from the union would be recognized by the church and society. The church saw marriage as a sacrament, a holy bond that was not to be broken. It was less about romance and more about duty, family honor, and maintaining the structure of society. For many peasants, a marriage might be confirmed in a simple ceremony outside the church doors, witnessed by neighbors and family. There might be bread shared, hands clasped, and blessings given. The focus was on the agreement itself rather than the celebration, and any festivities would often be modest, constrained by what the family could afford. Among the wealthier classes, marriages were grander, but just as carefully controlled. Contracts would be drawn up, dowries negotiated, and lands discussed long before the couple ever met each other. Fathers and brothers often controlled these discussions, ensuring that the match would strengthen the family's position, secure alliances, or bring new wealth into the family's holdings. Women, in particular, had little say in these negotiations. A young woman might learn one morning that she was to marry a man she had never spoken to, with the expectation that she would leave her family and home to live with strangers, managing a household and becoming a mother before she had fully grown herself. The dowry was an essential part of marriage arrangements. A dowry might include livestock, land, household goods, or money, depending on the family status. It was not simply a gift. It was insurance for the bride, intended to protect her should her husband die or the marriage face challenges. Yet the dowry also tied the woman to her husband's family, making it difficult for her to leave if the marriage was unhappy. The church insisted on the freedom of consent, meaning that both the bride and groom were supposed to agree to the marriage. But in practice, this was often overshadowed by family pressure and economic necessity. A whispered yes under the gaze of parents and priests was enough to seal a lifetime bond. There were also rules about when marriages could take place. Certain periods, such as Lent and Advent, were forbidden for weddings, as they were times of fasting and reflection. The church had a strong presence in daily life, and marriage was no exception. The priest's blessing was needed to legitimize the union, and any marriage that occurred without the church's knowledge could lead to complications for the couple and their children. Once married, the couple would move into a new phase of life, often living in small, cold homes with few possessions beyond the essentials for survival. A bed might be a simple wooden frame with straw or wool, and personal privacy was limited. Family members often shared close quarters, and the idea of having personal space was nearly impossible. The role of a wife was demanding. She managed the household, prepared food, tended the garden, spun wool, and cared for the children. Her day was filled with tasks that required constant attention, from dawn until dusk. Pregnancy and childbirth were frequent, as having many children was seen as necessary, both for helping with work and for ensuring that at least some would survive into adulthood. Childbirth was a moment of fear as much as hope. Without modern medicine, even a healthy young woman could face life-threatening complications, and many women died during childbirth. Those who survived carried the physical burdens of repeated pregnancies and hard work, aging quickly under the weight of their responsibilities. Husbands, too, bore the pressures of medieval life. They were responsible for providing for their families, working the land or practicing a trade to ensure there was enough food to survive. Seasons of bad harvests or illness could quickly turn a stable household into one facing hunger and hardship. Marriage was a partnership, but one shaped by survival rather than ease. Despite these hardships, there were moments of tenderness and quiet companionship. A husband and wife might find comfort in each other's company during the long winter nights, sharing stories by the fire or working together to mend clothes and tools. Their connection often grew not from grand romantic gestures, but from the shared struggle of facing each day's demands together. It was in these quiet, everyday moments that love could quietly take root. A shared smile over a well-baked loaf of bread, the warmth of a hand on a tired shoulder, or the laughter of children playing in the dirt outside their small home. These were the moments that brought comfort amidst the harshness of medieval life. Marriage, for many, was not the end of hardship, but the beginning of a shared journey. It was filled with challenges and responsibilities, but also with the potential for a partnership that could bring moments of peace and companionship, even in a world so often marked by difficulty. Tonight, as you prepare to drift into sleep, let your mind imagine these quiet moments of companionship in the medieval world. The crackle of a small fire, the whisper of wind outside a wooden door, the quiet promise of two people facing the world together, day after day. Let this image bring you calm, reminding you that even in the hardest times, moments of connection can still exist. Breathe in softly, letting your mind rest in the quiet of these stories, and as your eyelids grow heavy, allow yourself to drift into sleep, carried by the gentle reminder that even in a world far harsher than our own, people found moments of care, partnership, and peace. Take a deep breath and let your body relax, allowing the gentle hush of these stories to prepare your mind for rest. As we continue, let us softly explore the rare spaces in medieval life where romance found a quiet place to bloom, despite the cold, the rules, and the endless demands of survival. Festivals were among the few occasions when young people could meet and interact with some freedom, under the watchful eyes of elders, but with moments of laughter and movement. Days like May Day, harvest festivals, and religious celebrations brought color and music to otherwise hard lives. Young men and women would join in dances on the village green, weaving around maypoles or gathering flowers as symbols of the season. In these gatherings, glances were exchanged and smiles shared, carrying more meaning than words could say. A young man might offer a flower, or a girl might tie a ribbon around the young man's wrist. These small gestures were the unspoken language of affection in a world where open declarations of love were rare and often discouraged. Singing and dancing provided opportunities for quiet conversation, small touches, and moments when hearts could connect, even briefly. These moments did not erase the harshness of medieval life, but they offered hope and a chance for connection in a world often defined by duty and hardship. Yet, even these moments came with boundaries. A father might watch from a distance, ensuring that his daughter did not stray too far or speak too long with a young man deemed unsuitable. A mother might remind her son to remember his family's needs before pursuing his heart's desires. The dances themselves often carried layers of meaning. Certain steps or pairings could hint at interest, and songs might carry hidden messages within their verses. A young woman might sing a verse that hinted at longing, while a young man might respond with a verse of promise. This subtle, coded communication allowed affection to exist where spoken words might be forbidden. Tokens played a significant role in medieval courtship. A ring, a piece of ribbon, or a small carving could be treasured, hidden away in a small box or beneath a pillow. These objects served as promises, quiet reminders of moments shared and hopes for the future. Letters were rare, as many could not read or write, but among the wealthier classes, letters became another way for love to be expressed. These letters were often filled with formal language, quoting religious texts or poetry, carefully composed to avoid suspicion while allowing the sender to share feelings that could not be spoken aloud. Courtly love, as sung by troubadours and written in the verses of poets, painted a picture of love that was pure, distant, and filled with longing. Knights would pledge themselves to ladies they could never truly have, writing poetry in their honor, wearing tokens in the battle, and promising loyalty in word and song. This courtly love was not about fulfilling desire, but about elevating love to something spiritual and untouchable. For many, it was a way to navigate the constraints of arranged marriages and family expectations, giving them a space to imagine love in a world where their choices were limited. But for many women, these stories of courtly love offered little comfort. Married to men they did not choose, often living in unfamiliar homes and bearing the weight of running households, their days were filled with labor and expectation. Yet, stories of romance and poetry might offer a moment of escape as they listened to songs sung in the courtyard or whispered by maids as they worked. Meanwhile, many men carried the burdens of supporting their families, maintaining lands, and serving their lords in battle. They too might find a moment of comfort in the songs of troubadours, imagining themselves as noble knights pledging loyalty to a lady, even if only in dreams. Despite the barriers, real love sometimes grew quietly in these harsh surroundings. A husband and wife might learn to care for one another through shared hardships, small gestures, and the simple moments of daily life. A smile across a shared meal, the warmth of hands meeting in the cold, or a shared look while working in the fields could build a bond stronger than any formal arrangement. In some rare cases, young couples managed to marry for affection rather than duty, with families agreeing if it did not threaten alliances or economic stability. These marriages, though not common, remind us that even in the most rigid societies, love could still find a way. Love in the medieval world was often hidden in small details, a glance, a touch, a shared song, or a quiet prayer whispered at night. In these small moments, people found comfort and connection, even when the world around them was cold and demanding. As you prepare to close your eyes tonight, imagine these quiet moments of medieval love. Picture a festival in a small village, with lanterns swaying in the wind and the soft strum of a lute in the background. Picture two young people sharing a shy smile, dancing under the watchful gaze of their families, finding a moment of connection in a world that offered so few. Imagine the soft glow of a candle in a cold stone room, a woman brushing her hair before bed, thinking of a ribbon hidden beneath her pillow, and a man finishing a long day's work, carrying a small token in his pocket as a reminder of a promise. These quiet images, filled with hope and longing, can bring you peace as you drift into rest, reminding you that even in the harshest times, human hearts have always sought connection, love, and moments of warmth in a cold world. Take a deep breath now, letting your body relax, and allow yourself to drift deeper into sleep, carried by the gentle rhythms of these ancient stories, reminding you of the small, quiet loves that live even in a world that seemed to leave so little space for them.